All right, good evening, members of council and administration. Welcome to our meeting this evening. Now we'll call the meeting to order, and I've had our land acknowledgement was read out at a special meeting just earlier, preceding this meeting. And to the members, I believe Tanya Jobin is not with us this evening. She's dealing on personal matters. And so with that, any disclosure of pecuniary interest on the agenda as presented to you today? I see none. We'll have that duly acknowledged. So the introduction and purpose of our meeting today is to hear a public comment on a zoning bylaw amendment application for a 0.29 hectare, 0.17 acre parcel of land situated at 1401-1429 Lesperance Road. And the purpose of the application is to amend zoning bylaw 1746 by rezoning the subject property from residential zone 2 R2 and residential zone 2 R2-25 to a site-specific residential zone 3 in order to facilitate the construction of a residential development consisting of 3 2.5 story 6-unit dwellings and establish site-specific lot, building, and yard provisions. The R2 zone applies to the 2 lots containing existing single-unit dwellings, while the R2-25 zone applies to the vacant central property that once was occupied by a commercial office building. The subject property is designated residential in the official Tecumseh plan. So I'll call upon our director, Mr. Brian Hillman, to summarize the report and certainly recommendation.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening to council and everyone who's attending. Very thorough introduction, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for that. And I'll just set the context a little bit further. So we're here because we have an application that's been filed with the municipality to change the zoning on the property. And the purpose is to allow the intensification for residential uses, which we'll get into in a little bit more detail. I will try to be quite brief. There is a report that was submitted and received by council at a prior regular council meeting that summarizes this proposal in detail and provides the policy context, and was seeking permission to proceed with this public meeting. So I'll at a very high level and give an opportunity to hear from the public, which is why we're here this evening. So Sean, if we just go to attachment number 1, and I'll just
it's
remind
6.
I'll remind council that the applicants are here as the first delegation. Okay, so they'll have an opportunity to speak as well as a number of people from the public. So the image on the screen shows you a property identified with the red outline. It's 3 existing lots on Lesperance, right at the corner of Arbor Street, where we have a signalized intersection. You can see the property in the middle currently vacant, and then there were 2 houses on the north lot and south, collectively making 2 houses on the red property. And the middle property was zoned to allow residential or office uses, and that was reflective of what had been there previously. The application is to allow for the intensification of the site for 18 units in total. So if we go to the next attachment, please, Sean. Just again, to set the context a little bit, you can see that as a reference point, we're at the corner of Arbor Street, southwest corner, cemetery much further to the south, a single unit dwelling immediately south of the subject property, and then 2 units that are north and south, fronting Reno and Arbor Street, that are immediately to the west. And then to the north, we can see St. Antoine School, and of course the downtown center as you head further north. Generally speaking, the area is of a single unit dwelling in nature, but the little black stars that you'll see on certain properties allow a range of semi and duplex type units as well. And you'll see an area there that's just highlighted in orange at the corner of Lanou and Lesperance, and that's St. Anne's Arm, which is a similar type of development in terms of look, density, and positioning of the buildings, etc. So we'll come back to that shortly. So more specifically, the details with respect to the requested zoning. If we just go to the next slide, please, Sean, which is the preliminary site plan. So you can see what's proposed is removal and clearing of the entire site and the introduction of 2 three buildings, that would be oriented and shifted right to the front of the property so that they would have a presence along Lesperance Road with an entrance at the front and the back. Each of those would contain 6 units, 2.5 stories in height. Those are labeled 3 on this drawing. So the first story would be half in the ground, similar to St. Anne's, and the other 2 stories would be above with a pitched roof. Access exclusively provided by St. Arbor Street, parking to the rear. And you can see that it is intended to connect to the sidewalks that are in the public Arbor Street in Lesperance, both out to the front along Lesperance and to the rear along Arbor, so that there's connections to all the sidewalks in the area. In addition, the parking to the rear would be both a tier of parallel parking on the most westerly limit, perpendicular parking on the balance. And then you'll notice at the south end of the site, a blocked out area, which is for a turnaround. So you would pull in, if you're in a parallel spot, you would back out, and then you'd be able to leave onto Arbor Street in a proper position in terms of facing the street and crossing the sidewalk. Finally, a 10-foot buffer is proposed along the west side of the property, and it's showing cedars. I would like to acknowledge, definitely at this point, this is a rezoning process. That is the concept that's proposed through these discussions and input from the public. There can certainly be modifications to those kinds of details to the site plan process that's required before this development proceeds, if in fact the rezoning were to be supported by council. So there are details like that that can be further visited and worked out through the site plan process. When the applications were filed, there were additional supporting documents that were provided. A traffic impact study, which considered the operation of this intersection, Arbor and Lesperance, and whether or not it would be disrupted by this type of development. And generally the conclusion, which I won't go into the entire study, but it indicates that no operational issues are expected at the signalized intersection of Lesperance and Arbor, based on the existing 2021 traffic volumes and total 27 projected volumes. Administration has reviewed the report prepared by a professional traffic engineer and is satisfied with the conclusions. In addition, there is a sanitary assessment undertaken by Dillon Consulting at the request of the municipality, which confirmed that there is sufficient capacity for the development, and it would be on full services, water, wastewater, and quality and quantity control of water. Stormwater would have to take place as well. So when looking at an application like this, in addition to public input, it is reviewed against a number of policy documents. And at a very summary level, the first is provincial policy, which does encourage intensification in our settlement areas that we have identified in our local official plan. And there's very broad policies from our perspective in the provincial policy statement that this application would be in compliance with and consistent with. The county official plan is very much a mirror of the provincial policy statement, and we have to ensure that any changes to the zoning bylaw are in conformity with the county official plan. Again, very much directs this type of development to our urban areas and encourages intensification where there is appropriate services available, and to optimize, creating vibrant neighborhoods where possible. And then finally, the local official plan, Tecumseh's official plan, has a range of policies that we've evaluated the proposal against, and they include having consideration for a high density development like this, which this is considered in the official plan, similar again to St. Anne Arms. There are a number of policies we evaluate this against and look at. There's also a number of policies around land use compatibility to ensure that these types of development properly fit and can coexist with neighboring uses. And there are urban design policies that are reviewed and considered in evaluating these types of proposals. But for this evening, if we go to the next slide, please, Sean. This evening, we're really here to consider this proposal. This is a view looking as if I were standing on the northeast corner, let me get my bearings, northeast corner of the Arbor Lesperance intersection, looking towards the development. And you can see that it's facing out to the street and is proposed to be 2.5 stories. And I think finally, Sean, there might be one last rendering, and I'm sorry, nope, there's the official plan contextually where this is located at the north end of the town. And finally, one last attachment for reference in case it's required. It's just the existing zoning of the property and the surrounding land. So, Mr. Mayor, very important for this evening to hear input from neighboring property owners to help us in a thorough evaluation of the application. And the applicant is here as well as a number of residents and some correspondents. So happy to address any questions council or others may have as they're meeting.
All right, thank you. Thank you for the summary, Mr. Hillman. At this stage here to Mr. Hillman, any questions or comments from members of council? Okay, hearing none, then we'll go to delegations, and our first delegation, Mr. Anthony Pipolo and Mr. Andrew Smith are certainly applicants, are the first there. And I've got here, and I believe, Madam Clerk, we got our procedural bylaw 2 is 10 minutes. Okay, so Mr. Pipolo and Mr. Smith.
Yes, hello?
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah. I guess I didn't want to add much to it. I hope you can hear me. Sorry, my apologies if there's some noise in the background, but not much I want to add. I just wanted to say I'm a local resident. We live in Tecumseh. We built in Tecumseh. We want to build something nice. We want something that the community is going to be proud of. We did go with a similar look and style of St. Anne's Arms, only because of the fact that we understood it was something that people appreciated, they liked. I know they had a little bit of a fight from some people, but ultimately they got what they needed to move ahead. And I feel like we're headed in the right direction with this particular look and style. And I'm hopeful that the residents agree.
I'll do this. I do this instead.
Okay.
Okay, Your Worship, I'm Anthony Pipolo. I'm the design consultant assisting in the process here and trying to address their wishful promotional development schemes into renderings and renditions of what the community could accept. And I hope that tonight that there aren't any issues, but we are looking forward to a proper development for the compatible development for the community. And we provided a color scheme, an example, a site plan and conceptual. So if there are any comments, we are open to receive comments and maybe some contextual items. But as far as following codes and plans and Tecumseh rules, I think we've done a very good job as a team to comply with that. And we're looking at a positive result here tonight.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Pipolo, and certainly Mr. Smith. And if there's no further, is there any questions from council at this stage here to both Mr. Pipolo or Mr. Andrew? Yes, go ahead, Deputy Mayor Becchetti.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Anthony and Andrew, for coming forward this evening. Just a question in terms of, past experience. Do you have any other developments you've done in the region, or would this be your first one in terms of this type of units and development?
So I have done different developments, mostly in Windsor. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Finelli family. I work quite a bit with them. I've been working with them for almost 16 years. We've done different developments together, collaboratively. And so now we move on. I mean, this is just a situation that happened, that land became available in Tecumseh. But as you may know, my office is located right around the corner, just on Tecumseh Road, just over the tracks there in front of Naples. And so I just saw an opportunity to do something here. I think there's a need and a want. And I saw how successful St. Anne's Arms was and thought, well, I could do the same there. We even went to the point of hiring two architects that had worked closely with that. So to ensure that we kind of stay within those parameters. But in terms of construction wise, no, I mean, I work for 9 builders. This is probably my 6th or 7th development. So yeah, things will go well. I don't have any concerns or issues there.
No, thank you. The reason I ask is there's a lot of excitement. You have a sign on the property, Arbor Heights, and we get a lot of calls in terms of what's going up there, and there's a lot of the members of the public that are interested and want more information. So tonight was the first step in terms of having public engagement, hearing input from the public, and moving forward. So I thank you for again interested in developing in Tecumseh here.
Absolutely. And moving forward, I mean, this is something that I'm getting more and more involved in, whether it be, condo developments and this and that. So this is just part and parcel to that. But this is fairly easy for us. We've done it numerous times, so we're excited about it too. We did put up the website and everything too. So if anybody wants information, or if like to log on for more information, they can just jump on the website and take a look at it too. So we are an open book. There's nothing here that we're not willing to answer any questions or any feedback, and that we're completely open. If there's any concerns, please let us know.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else? Yeah, go ahead, Councilor Houston and Councilor Altenhoff.
Thank you, Your Worship. And this might be a question for Brian Hillman, but there's a lot of reference between St. Anne's Arms and what is being proposed here, 2.5 stories. Just to confirm, St. Anne's Arms is also 2.5 stories, and it'd be the same height that's being proposed here. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is correct. And when you saw the image that Sean had up, you'll see that, and if you're familiar with St. Anne's Arms, very similar. The first story is half in the ground, 2 stories completely above, and there's a peaked pitched roof. And the density is quite similar as well. It's a slightly larger site here. So you have another building and 6 more units, but effectively very similar in scope, scale, and size.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Altenhoff.
Thank you, Worship. And through you, perhaps 2 questions. The first one to Mr. Hillman. Is this identified as the higher density? I know it's St. Anne's Arms was identified as that higher density. I'm just trying to see the classification for what's been proposed here.
You, Mr. Mayor. Yes, so the official plan sets out a range of different densities for us to place the type of development within the density classification. And this density, which is, as I recall, was approximately 62 units per hectare, puts it into the high density classification based on the various divisions in the OP. And I believe it's everything above 50 units per hectare. If you can bear with me. Actually, if we can continue, I will find that for council and confirm that yes, it's anything above 50 units per hectare is deemed to be high density. And then the official plan sets out for high density, what are the criteria that are to be looked at and the application evaluated against. So there's a broad density of residential throughout the town, and then policies change depending on the density that's proposed in terms of how it's evaluated. This one would be considered high density, similar to St. Anne's Arms.
Go ahead, Councilor Altenhoff, supplementary.
Thank you, Worship. And through you, perhaps to Mr. Pipolio and Mr. Smith, do you envision this development to be ownership type or a rental? I mean, what's your vision? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, so our thoughts are rental, similar to St. Anne's Arms. We want to keep the development as a rental, just a high end, let's just call it a higher end rental. We have had a lot of inquiries actually about condo, but we do not plan to go that route. We think it's better suited and best, even just not just for us, but for the community as well, to rent or lease versus sale.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, then thank you. And now I'll call on our second delegation, Mrs. Rita Ossington. Oh, you're still muted.
Technology. Good evening, Your Worship and members of council. As you know, I'm Rita Ossington. I live at 1433 Lesperance. I'm right next to this proponent, and I'm here with my neighbor and longtime friend, Kevin Chopieski, who lives at 12264 Reno. We oppose the bylaw amendment application as proposed. We're lifelong residents of Tecumseh. Kevin has lived in his house for 40 years, me for 38. This is my family home, where my husband and I raised our 3 kids. One I hope to pass on to them. It is where my 4 grandchildren visit and connect with their memories of their grandfather. Our properties abut this proposed development. As proposed, this development will have serious consequences to our properties and our neighborhood. Both of us intend to age in our homes comfortably until we move to our real estate next door or to the south. We are not opposed to development on this property that brings new life to our neighborhood, rather the size and intensity. We do have some concerns relating directly to the proposal as presented, and one is it's too close to my house. I was told it would be 30 feet, it's 15. Taller than any other structure in this neighborhood. My long distance views of 6 of my 7 windows facing the proponent could be diminished or blocked. It seems likely that there will be windows overlooking my living space and our backyards, infringing on our privacy. Proposed parking is a combination of parallel and stall parking with space, a 3-point turn directly at my kitchen window. We will have fumes, car lights, and the sounds of trucks jockeying in and out of this spot, allowing for the turn needed to exit. Proposed directly at my dining table, diminishing my quality of life. Garbage and air conditioning units show directly adjacent to my deck and window, where I spend most of my days and nights relaxing and entertaining. Even if the garbage is collected daily, the stench from the garbage from 6 units in the summer heat would be unbearable. There's no fencing identified on the plans. Given the number of units and the minimal parking required on site with 28 spots, the extra parking will be parking on Reno. People will be compelled to walk up our driveways and across our yards from the street to access the site without a less permeable divide. This proposal has been compared to St. Anne's Arms, a block north at Lanoux. This proposal is more intense and intends to integrate into a more built-up neighborhood with its 3 buildings. There are 9 single homes surrounding these combined properties. Only one group home at 1414 Lesperance Road is a full 2-story home. There's no public parking lots, only street parking. Driveways face the main entrance of the school. Not with St. Anne's Arms, which is 2 units. It impacts 2 homes, 2-story homes already converted to, one is an apartment and the other is separated by an alley. There are also municipal and church parking lots and a limited need of street parking. It has no contact with the school to speak of. St. Anne's Arms is also a block to a parkette and a block to a small park, part of the CIP and commercial properties. Though the development is blocks away, the makeup of our block is different. This is a drastic change to our neighborhood. The intense development proposal has the potential to double the population with 3 buildings, with a minimum of 18 and a maximum of 72 on less than an acre. The sidewalk needs updating to a safer option to support buggies, bikes, and foot traffic. It is narrow against Lesperance Road, connecting north and south from the expressway to Riverside Drive, a truck route. Delivery vehicles will stop on Lesperance Road as that is the address, rather than take the time to enter the parking lot. There is no noticeable provision for load-ins and loads-outs or larger trucks without inconvenience. Intensification continues to increase traffic in the neighborhood. The limited traffic study does not address St. Anne's Boulevard to the west, not signaled, and the many children in the blocks to the west that walk. They don't go to the light, or the increase in other schools' bus stops in the immediate area. Is there a recent study of traffic patterns when these larger developments west are in use and when the CIP implements plan to double lane Tecumseh Road? What impact will this have on the 4 streets leading into Arbor and Reno? Flooding and climate change. What will the impact of this development be on the storm system? Town's storm system failed me in September of 2016 and flooded my basement over land through the windows. My sump pumps did not fail. I have noted storm drain concerns in IRCA's submitted report, recommending the need to address quality and quantity up to the 1 in 100-year storms. Intensification. It's a word we're hearing a great deal in planning. Even the Premier has mentioned it recently regarding affordable housing. However, it's hard to find exactly what it means in practice. Does it mean older neighborhoods intensify until they don't have any sanitary or stormwater capacity and basements flood? Is it when it reaches a minimum or a maximum vehicular model at an intersection without regard to the effect on the surrounding streets, or when green space reaches a certain benchmark or capacity? Or does it mean a tool to support this kind of proposal? Apartments proposed to support a very transient younger population hoping to buy homes and retirees in a neighborhood that has been described by Tecumseh's own planning in 2016 as a stable, low density neighborhood. Given this, it doesn't fit. We have 3 examples of intensified development, 2 larger examples with Carmelita and Poisson townhouses and the smaller infills on Arbor. These are good examples of intensification and housing examples as defined in the policy, in the Provincial Policy Statement 2020. These fit into the overall context of the bordering neighborhood. With this extensive intensification we are experiencing to the west from Shawnee to Southfield, 5 or 6 new apartment structures of various sizes under construction, and the expansion of the nursing home, do we need this amount of intensification and a more transient population in this stable neighborhood? We would suggest a less intense approach to this property. Lower the height to no more than 2 stories with more fitting roof lines, more parking on site, attractive fencing to control our yards, green space to enjoy the neighborhood, as well as consider the intense growth to the west. We need growth. God knows we need growth. The development of single family options and homes to accommodate these wishing to downsize, but not ready to give up their backyard. Not this intense development, introducing a transient population into a stable neighborhood. Thanks to those who I had time to speak to in advance, and to you for listening to our concerns. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Ossington. Any questions or comments at this stage? Yes, Councilor Tonio.
I've been asked by a resident and their neighbor to discuss their opinions on this. Mr. Doug Petrie and Sharon Petrie asked me to speak on their behalf. They are for this development. They've had conversations with Mr. Smith and some other neighbors, and they like the development, how it's being progressed forward, and they're for that along with the neighbor next door. So I just was asked to bring that forward on behalf of Mr. Doug and Sharon Petrie. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Any further questions or comments to Ms. Ossington at this stage? Yes, Councillor Aldenhoff.
Thank you, Worship. And not to Miss Ossington, but excuse me, through you, Your Worship, but not to Miss Ossington, perhaps to Mr. Hillman or the proposed developers. What is the distance? I know Miss Ossington noted, a distance from her site to, I'm assuming it's her structure, to the other structure, about 15 foot. Just curious, are there any issues with setbacks that have been proposed? I'm just trying to understand, if there's other concerns, of that nature.
For you, Mr. Mayor, I certainly will try to answer that, and Mr. Smith may want to add something. So what I'm understanding, the point was on the site plan, it does show that the proposed most southerly building would be 15 feet from the lot line, not Miss Ossington's house. So it's a 15-foot separation. Then Ms. Ossington's house is set back some distance, and just looking at the air photo quickly, it looks like it may be roughly 10 feet, but that's something we would look at more closely following this meeting. So that, we're in the range of
driveway
building separation. I would just note that, these lands are zoned R2, and the way the side yard is set is 4 feet for 1 story, and then I would go to 6 feet for 2 stories. So that's the lot line setback that's proposed for a regular 2-story house. And this lot line separation is 15 feet, but it's from building proposed to the lot line.
Yeah, go ahead, supplementary, Councillor Aldenhoff.
Thank you, Worship. And through you again on the other item that was noted by Ms. Ossington about the location of the garbage. Is there any issues with regard to that? I mean, it is quite close, the way it's positioned, at least on the plan for now. I recognize it's not, we're not at site plan, but could that be somewhat optimized? Sorry,
You're muted, Mr. Hillman.
I apologize. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Aldenhoff, good question. That is the type of detail that we would certainly take a look at and want to try and ensure there's adequate separation. I know that in the building up at St. Anne's Arms, there was discussion around actually a brick wall being built to separate some of these features. There are different types of garbage structures that can be used, whether they're Herbie-Kirby's versus other types of units that are available. So I would suggest that we will certainly look at that as something to try and ensure that it addresses the issue, which is, it sounds like, trying to ensure that it's far enough away from the adjacent property not to cause any adverse effects.
Thank you. That's all for now. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Tonio.
I think Councillor Dow is for me. It's a matter to you, Andrew.
No, actually, you were ahead of him.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. One of the ideas I had was maybe at the south end of this development that abuts up to Rita's house, could there be an exit driveway? Not entrance, but just an exit driveway. So forget the turnaround concept, where they could exit the subdivision from there, but not enter it. Is that a possibility? Is there
That's
room
what it
for
was
that?
supposed to be. Yeah, that's what we were told.
It's
So,
hold off, Ms. Ossington.
So
Go ahead, Brian.
Mr. Mayor, yes, thank you. So it was on the table at one point as an option. The challenge becomes, I guess, a couple of things come to mind. One is it's the introduction of traffic between the 2 buildings. So the Ms. Ossington's house and the development exiting onto Lesperance, which is a busy road. And it was felt ultimately that instead of introducing that traffic flow, one direction, exit only, onto a busy street, was better accommodated by having the traffic flow to Arbor, where it exits onto a quieter street with a full intersection just to the west. because
Not a quieter street.
to be. to
Can you
the, to
mute
the
your,
east.
excuse me, Mr. Hillman, could you mute Ms. Ossington? Thank you. Go
So-
ahead, Mr. Hillman.
I apologies. So ultimately, it was felt that it's better, just given this, the nature of the development, where it's located in relationship to Lesperance, to Arbor, to County Road 22 to the south, the single home on the house to the south, that having the green space between the two buildings is better than having the corridor that cars are driving down. And we do actually feel that it's a better fit having all the traffic flowing up to Arbor adjacent to the signalized intersection.
Okay, and then sorry, follow up, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just logistically too, can we control people not turning into it and driving? We'll put signs up, of course, if it was that way with no entry signs on it, but I'm sure people are going to choose the shortcut if the shortcut's available. So we could end up having a traffic flow into the building from there, causing a backlog all the way down Lesperance, maybe if there are people are waiting to turn left, even though there's a turn left arrows there. So, okay, thank you for your answer, Mr. Hillman.
Okay, Councilor Dowie.
Thank you, Worship, and through you to actually, if it's okay, I know we were asking questions of the delegate, but I was hoping to actually ask questions of the administration based on the delegate's presentation. Is that in order?
Yes,
Okay,
go
thank
ahead.
you. So through you, Worship, to Mr. Hillman. So there are two pieces that Ms. Ossington mentioned that that noted the character of the neighborhood and the kind of built environment that exists, and what results from a change going to a higher density development for this area, as well as a more transient type of population. And I'm wondering if you could elaborate a bit as to some of the general land use planning principles that are considered. Like if is this an appropriate place, good or bad, for a higher density development, given it's on an arterial road, or are they better suited infill between existing lots? I guess that's number one. And number two, is there any real distinction in land use planning for permanent residents versus those that may rent for months or years versus homeowners? That, like, is that a consideration that is considered at the tribunal, for example, in making land use planning decisions?
Thank you, Councilor Valley, through you, Mr. Mayor. Well, that's a full question. So I'll take a stab at that. Let's start in reverse order with with the concept of transient. So really in land use planning, we look at things as you own your home or you rent, and both are accepted forms of accommodation. And really, you could go to all kinds of bankers, financial analysts, planners, and so on. There's not one that's better than the other. And I think, commonly in the Ontario market and the Canadian market, those are choices that should and are available to the population. Everybody has different financial capacity and really different financial goals. But what we're really talking about is the ability to ensure we have adequate housing for a range of citizens who are at different stages in their lives and have different aspirations. Rental accommodation certainly is something that I think is very important. And actually is becoming more important as there's a shift in priorities. So I'm not familiar in the planning vernacular around the concept of renting equals transient, and they may be there for a month, for a year. Some people rent their entire lives, and that's a valid choice. You can rent a home, a single detached home. You can rent in a 5-story apartment building, or you can rent in this type of development. So I'm not convinced there's any tangible issue there other than it's people living in a form of accommodation. Character of an area is a very challenging question. There are major changes that are happening in the Ontario landscape as it relates to housing. We're about to have a couple of reports on the council meeting this evening around additional residential units, which are intended by the province to be available as of right. So our neighborhoods are going to change. The character of our neighborhoods are evolving over time, and they're adapting to, I think, two fundamental things. There's a shift in the amount of housing that's required to accommodate people. There are lots of housing stock that's large that can be accommodating more individuals. There's properties that are large enough to accommodate more housing units. And there's a housing need that exists across the board. No singular policy decision or zoning application is going to be the moment of we've solved the problem. These are all parts of ensuring that we provide choice, opportunity, and flexibility. So when looking at this type of development and will it change the character of the area, one can walk through this neighborhood and see that currently it's primarily single detached dwellings. One can certainly see that St. Anne Arms is 2.5 stories. You can tell there's more than one unit inside there. I'm not convinced that because it's 2.5 stories and it's 3 blocks of buildings that it changes the residential character of the area. It still continues to have the ability for people to live a healthy lifestyle, be part of a vibrant community, be on a transit route, be adjacent to a road that can accommodate additional pedestrian and vehicular traffic. And I think one of the things that we're coming to realize in Ontario and in Tecumseh is that we have a lot of infrastructure that's been invested in. And as much as we look outside and say, well, it's busy, it's taking a long time to get from A to B, there's substantial inherent capacity in our infrastructure that we need to start taking advantage of for any number of reasons, from climate change to sustainability, to creating vibrant communities, to offering a transit system that actually has a population there that can utilize it. So, ultimately, there are a number of things that we look at when we're evaluating these, anything from can the infrastructure accommodate it? Is there adequate on-site parking? Is it adjacent to commercial areas? Is it accessible to transit? Is it sufficiently close to parkland? And those are the types of criteria that we look at when we evaluate these types of proposals. So, that's a bit of a rambling response, but that's sort of on the spot my comments.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dowley. Any further questions? Obviously, no decisions have been made tonight. It's this is an opportunity to gather information. Okay, nothing else here. What about Mr. Chapieski, was he to speak or? No, okay, thank you. Then communications, we have 5 items of communications. Have been move the communications.
Yes, just before that, can we have the address of Mr. Chapieski just for the record? I'm not sure where approximate his address or where he lives.
Yeah, on Reno Street. I think Miss Ossington gave that number, but I think it's 12. Miss Ossington, could you just refer again for the record? But have you got it, Laura?
No, I don't, Your Worship. And through you, could we please request Miss Ossington to submit her comments that she read out this evening in writing? Thank you.
I was going to ask you that, Laura. Sorry. Kevin lives at 12264 Reno Street. He is on the back side of the proponent. He is in the backyard of Doug and Sharon Pete.
Okay. That's what I figured.
Yeah. He is also where that turnaround is to take place.
Okay. All right.
Well, that's already understood.
Okay, so that's that. So I got 5 items of communications to receive. Members of council, if I have a motion to receive. Councillor Houston and Councillor Tonio, all in favor. Opposed, if any, that's carried. Anyway, the report was the scheduling of the public meeting, which is now so a motion to receive the report that's presented by Mr. Hillman, Deputy Mayor Bichetti, supported by Council Houston, questions or comments? Having heard none, all in favor? Oppose if any, that is carried. And that's just to receive the report, Ms. Ossington, not to adopt. And if there's nothing further at this stage here, then members of council, adjournment is in order. Councillor Tonio and Councillor Altenhoff. All in favor? Oppose if any, that is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Ossington and Mr. Chapiaski for as delegation, and to Mr. Pipolo and also Mr. Smith. Thank you for bringing the proposal forward. And no further business, then adjournment has been duly called. And so all in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. So members of council, we have about 10 minutes to prepare for our regular council meeting. So